You already know who I am talking about. You pictured them the moment you read the title. Maybe it is the neighbor 2 doors down who always seems to know what is going on inside every house on the street. Maybe it is the woman at church who asks how you are doing with a look that says she already told someone else. Maybe it is someone in a group you belong to who frames everything as concern, but somehow the concern always involves somebody else's private business. You know exactly who this person is, and if you have ever been on the receiving end of their attention, if something private about your life got passed around before you were ready, or you heard something about yourself through the grapevine that made your stomach drop, you know the particular mix of hurt and frustration that comes with it. Not quite anger, something quieter and more tired than anger. So let me ask you right now, before we go into any of this, what is your gossip situation? A neighbor? Someone at church? A family member who treats everyone's business like shared property? A person in a social group who always seems to know a little too much? Drop that in the comments. You do not have to name anyone, just the situation. Because I think a lot of people watching this have been carrying this for years and have never had it explained in a way that actually makes sense. Here is what Carl Jung understood about people like this, and I promise to keep it plain and simple because the idea is actually not complicated once someone points it out. The gossip is not really talking about other people. They are talking about themselves, not on purpose, not consciously. They do not sit down and decide to do it. But everything they pass along, every private detail they share, every story they circulate, is connected to something going on inside them that they have never sat down and dealt with. And talking about other people makes that inner noise a little quieter, at least for a little while. Let me show you exactly what I mean. 1. They feel small, and talking makes them feel important. Here is the first thing going on underneath the behavior, and it is the most common one. Deep down, in a place they have probably never examined and would certainly never admit to, the neighborhood gossip feels small, insignificant, like their life did not quite add up to what they thought it would, like they are standing a little bit on the outside of things, looking in at everyone else. Now that is a painful feeling. And gossip, as strange as this sounds, fixes it, temporarily, but effectively. Here is how it works. When you have information other people do not have, you suddenly matter. You are the one people come to. You are the one who knows things. You are the one who gets asked. And being asked, being sought out, being the source, produces a feeling in the body that is very close to significance. Think about the person at church who always seems to be the first to know about any difficulty in the congregation, the struggling marriage, the health scare, the financial trouble. They pass it along with a careful expression of concern, and every person they tell turns to them with full attention, asks questions, wants to know more. For those few minutes, this person is at the center. They matter. They are needed. That feeling is what they are actually after. The information is just the vehicle. A woman I know described someone in her bridge club perfectly. She said the gossip in their group only really got going on certain weeks, the weeks when this person had been overlooked, left out of plans, or feeling unnoticed. The weeks when she was included and busy and part of things, she was actually quite pleasant to be around. It was the weeks she felt invisible that the talking started. That right there is the whole pattern. The gossip ramps up when the person's own need for significance is going unmet. Jung would say, this is what happens when someone has not found a stable sense of worth from the inside. When your inner foundation is shaky, you borrow importance from other people's private lives. You become the one who knows things, because knowing things makes you feel like you count. It is not evil. It is a person using the only tool they have found that temporarily works. 2. They are running from something in their own life. Here is the second thing going on, And this one is a little harder to sit with, but it is important. The person who talks constantly about other people's problems very often has significant problems of their own that they are not facing, not always visible ones. Sometimes the house looks fine, the life appears in order. But inside, in the marriage, in the relationship with their grown children, in their sense of purpose, in how they feel about where their life ended up, things are not as settled as they appear on the outside. And here is the thing about focusing on other people's difficulties. It is one of the most effective ways human beings have ever invented for not thinking about their own. When you are busy circulating someone else's news, you are not sitting with your own quiet sadness. When you are discussing someone else's troubled relationship, you are not having the hard conversation in your own. When you are following someone else's financial trouble, you are not facing your own worries about money. It is distraction. Social distraction, which is the most effective kind because it comes dressed up as community and connection. Let me put a face to this. Think of a woman. We will call her Gloria, 64 years old, 3 grown children she rarely hears from, a retirement that arrived before she was ready for it emotionally, a husband she has been quietly disappointed in for a long time. She is not unhappy in any dramatic way, but she is lonely and restless, and she does not know what to do with either of those feelings. And then a neighbor mentions something about someone down the street, and Gloria passes it along. And for the next 2 hours she is on the phone, connected, in the middle of things, relevant. The loneliness does not touch her for those 2 hours. The restlessness settles a little. Gloria is not trying to hurt anyone. She is managing feelings she has not found better tools for. The talking is not really about the neighbors. It is about the quiet emptiness in her own house that she has not figured out how to address directly. Jung spent decades writing about this pattern. He called it living on the surface of life, keeping busy with the exterior world, with other people's stories and dramas and difficulties, as a way of avoiding the interior one. It works short-term, but it never resolves anything. The loneliness comes back. The emptiness returns. And so the talking continues, because the talking is the only relief they have found that works at all. 3. They are seeing their own faults in other people. This is the deepest one, and it is the one that will most change how you see this person once you understand it. Jung had a name for a very specific human habit. He called it projection, and it is simpler than it sounds. Projection is when something you feel or believe about yourself, something uncomfortable, something you do not want to face, gets relocated in your mind. Instead of experiencing it as part of you, you start experiencing it as something you are seeing in other people. Here is what it looks like in everyday life. The person who is quietly dishonest and cannot stop talking about other people lying. The person who feels like a failure and cannot stop focusing on other people's failures. The person who is struggling in their own marriage and is endlessly interested in everyone else's relationship problems. The thing they keep coming back to in others is almost always pointing at something they cannot look at in themselves. Now apply that to the gossip in your life. What does this person always seem to come back to? What are the themes in the stories they circulate? What kind of difficulty in other people's lives seems to draw their attention most reliably? Because the answer to that question is probably telling you something real about what they are carrying inside and cannot face directly. The neighbor who always knows about everyone's financial troubles, what might that tell you about her own relationship with money? The person at church who cannot stop circulating stories about struggling marriages, what might be happening in her own? The one who always finds the shadow in someone else's success, what might she feel about her own? Once you start looking at gossip this way, you stop seeing a mean person doing mean things. You start seeing someone struggling with something they have not found a way to look at honestly. someone whose inner life is leaking out sideways because they have not built a direct path for it. What this means for you. Here is the part that I want you to really sit with, because this is the one that actually changes things. When someone gossips about you, when your private life gets circulated, when your name gets attached to a story you did not tell, it feels personal. It feels like a judgment, like something is being decided about you. But look at what is actually happening. They are managing their feelings of insignificance by being the source of information. Or they are distracting themselves from their own pain by focusing on yours. Or they are seeing in you the things they cannot face in themselves. In none of those cases are they actually making a statement about you. They are making a statement about themselves. You just happen to be the available material at that moment. A retired school principal said something I have always remembered. He said, "When I hear gossip about other people, what does it really tell me? Almost nothing real about the person being discussed, but it tells me a lot about the person sharing it, what they are anxious about, what they need, what they are running from." I realized one day I should probably apply that same thinking when I am the one being discussed. That is the shift. That is the realization that changes how their words land on you. Their gossip is information about them, not about you, and once you genuinely understand that, not just as an idea but as something you feel is true, you can stop lying awake wondering what they are saying. You can stop the exhausting work of trying to correct the story or manage your reputation around this person, because the story was never really about you in the first place. What to do? 2 simple things. First, stop giving them material. You do not have to be cold or unfriendly. Smile warmly and say nothing of substance. "Things are going well, thank you. It has been a busy time." Warmth without access. They can like you just fine while knowing nothing real about your life. Second, stop trying to correct the story. When you explain or defend yourself, you confirm that their opinion matters enough to respond to. You give them more material and more power. The more effective move is a calm smile and a short answer. You do not have to win the narrative, just stop feeding it. Here is what people do not expect. Once you really understand what is going on inside this person, the loneliness, the pain they are avoiding, the things they cannot face, something changes in how you feel toward them. Not approval of the behavior, but something closer to compassion. The recognition that this person has found a coping mechanism that hurts others and does not actually help them either. The relief gossip brings is short, the loneliness comes back, and the person is no further along in dealing with any of it. The gossip is someone struggling in a way they have not found a better answer to yet. And you can create distance from them, warmly, calmly, without drama, from a place of understanding rather than anger. That is a much more comfortable place to operate from. Tell me in the comments, what is the gossip situation in your life right now, and does understanding what is probably behind it change anything about how you see them? I am reading everything below, and if this helped you make sense of someone in your life, pass it along to a friend who is dealing with the same thing. That is the best thing one person can do for another sometimes. Just say, "Here, watch this, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one."